I'm here at Union Station in Washington, D.C., where National Guard troops have been deployed since mid-August. President Trump's federalization of the D.C. police is set to expire on September 10th, but the National Guard deployment has been extended until November. For the most part, National Guard troops have been standing around in visible tourist areas, patrolling, doing beautification projects. They can't carry out law enforcement. But it's federal agents who have been spotted around the city, often wearing masks, often in unmarked vehicles, who have been carrying out the real law enforcement activity. At the same time, the biggest protests have really been against the federalized police and against the federal agents that have flooded DC streets since Trump sent them in about a month ago. Trump's security crackdown has had a noticeable impact on the city. A lot of people are scared to go to work, people who are undocumented or people who are worried that they might be stopped. People have noticed this in daycare centers, in Hispanic churches, in restaurants. So there has been quite a visible impact when it comes to everyday life in many of the neighborhoods in this city.
Go home! Go home! Go home!
At the same time, in very visible areas, in shopping districts, in restaurant districts, people have kind of gotten used to going out to dinner and just seeing soldiers walking around. President Trump has threatened to send the National Guard to other cities across the country to quell crime, including Chicago, Baltimore, New Orleans, and some others.
And we'd love to go into Chicago and straighten it out. You know, Washington, D.C., you'll be happy to know, is a free and safe zone. It's so safe right now.
Unlike in Washington, governors control the deployment of National Guard troops in their own states. So any move would likely trigger legal challenges, as it did in California. Even here in Washington, which is a city that is fairly used to the National Guard being deployed for big events or seeing them in their streets, there are concerns that after this extended deployment, it's really going to politicize the use of these troops because they're now tied to these law enforcement activities, they're tied to immigration raids. There are concerns that this is going to break the trust between civilians and the military, especially if President Trump deploys the National Guard to other cities across the country.
And now I'm proud to hand it back to Chairman Aguilar to close us out.
Thank you so much, Maxine. Thank you, Dr. Barra. Questions? Nick. Nick. Sorry. Nick. Is your name Nick too? Nick. Nick, please.
I'm going to ask you on the ACA.
Nick, please.
I want to ask about government funding. Do you see this government funding deadline at the end of the month as being a fight over the ACA credits?
We see this being a fight over values. We see this being a fight over the Republican assault on health care. We know that the Affordable Care Act, whatever we want to say, Nick, Medicaid, Medicare, the Affordable Care Act, all of these, the American public views through a positive lens because the American public gets their health care from these important programs. That's what we're fighting about. But this isn't just about the Republican big ugly bill and the big ugly law now and that attack on health care, which is now law. This is still happening today. In the Appropriations Committee, where I'll go back to after this press conference, the continued attack and assault on healthcare, on NIH, on research, on infant mortality programs, all of these things matter to our communities. So this is much broader than the Affordable Care Act, although we lift that bill up for all of its positive achievements. This is about fundamentally Americans who receive their health care are now under attack by the Republican big ugly law and the continued attack in the Appropriations Committee. Even at this moment, at this day, at this hour, healthcare is under attack by Republicans and Donald Trump. We can't stand for that. We're not going to take that. And so you're going to continue to hear us speak up on this from now until the end of the month with a potential Republican shutdown.
Just coming in tonight, the disaster at a U.S. port. Dozens of shipping containers falling off a cargo ship and right into the water. Where those containers were from and how this happened. Trevor Ault is on the scene in Los Angeles.
Oh, what's going on the stacks?
This is the moment dozens of cargo containers went tumbling off a ship at California's Port of Long Beach.
It looks like dominoes. It looks like once one portion started to fall, then more fell.
The Mississippi had just arrived from China early this morning, loaded with hundreds of containers.
Look at how they're teetering right on the edge there. This is the backside of the ship.
Officials say no one was injured, but cargo operations were suspended while workers rushed to secure the containers.
You see the fireboat, Long Beach fireboat there. I think that's their fireboat, using the water pressure to try and push some of those containers back to the corner where they want to keep them before they may sink.
Shoes and clothing seen scattered in the water, some containers falling directly onto a smaller boat alongside the ship.
If someone would have been on that boat when those containers fell, they would have been killed.
And David, investigators are working to determine what caused this incident, but some of these containers are still moving, and this is a major disruption at a crucial port. 30% of U.S. container imports come through Long Beach and Los Angeles. David.
To Washington now, where police say they seized 23 guns from the home of a 13-year-old who appeared to be fixated on school shooters. Police arrested the teen after finding some disturbing social media posts. Yesterday, he pleaded not guilty to charges of unlawful firearms possession and making a threat. Let's go to CBS News reporter Andres Gutierrez covering the story for us. Andres, what did deputies find and why did they act so quickly?
Well, Elizabeth, a possible tragedy was averted all because someone saw something and said something. Let's take you back to Friday. That's when Pierce County Sheriff deputies received a tip that a 13-year-old was online making threats that he had guns. About 12 hours later, at 1 a.m. Saturday, SWAT members showed up to the kid's house in Parkland, Washington. Inside, deputies found 23 weapons. You could see them right there on your screen. 8 handguns, 2 shotguns, and the rest of them semi-automatic rifles. Some of them were in a safe, but many, according to authorities, were out in the open, mounted on walls or left around the house. As you can imagine, there were also several boxes of ammo. And here is the disturbing bit. They also found loaded magazines inscribed with references to the Columbine massacre on them. This was allegedly found inside the teen's go bag. Investigators say the teen had also posted photos of himself holding guns online and posted on Telegram, quote, "When I turn 21, I'm going to kill people." He was also fixated on attacks like the 2017 Charleston church shooting and the 2022 school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Deputies believed it was only a matter of time unless they intervened.
Yeah.
Enough writings from that suspect that would conclude essentially some harm was going to be coming to individuals.
And now, while this boy did reference school shootings online, investigators say he did not have plans to attack a specific school. Get this, he actually himself has not been inside a school building since 2021, since he was 9 years old. He's been homeschooled since then. Right now, he is sitting inside a juvenile detention center there in Washington State after, as you said, he made his first court appearance yesterday afternoon. He will be back in front of a judge for a detention review, is what they call it, later this month.
Andres, just listening to the details of this case and looking at just the arsenal that this 13-year-old kid had, you got to wonder, how did he purchase those weapons? I mean, what about the parents and safe storage? Could they also be charged in this?
Well, right now, they're looking into this, Elizabeth. It's all under review. I did talk to the sheriff deputy that you heard from moments ago. I talked to her this afternoon, and she ended up telling me that social media posts from the teen would suggest that he did have access to the gun safes, and he posted images of the safe open with the weapons that he was holding at the time that photo was taken. And so there is state law there in Washington that parents can be charged after the fact if the minor gets to a gun and it ends up leading to harm or a credible threat. And there are around the country other rules that vary from state to state, that some states require locks at any time that a gun isn't under control, and others only end up penalizing the parents if the child actually gets a hold of one. So for right now, the parents in this case, they're still out and about. They probably have lawyered up by now. Investigators continue to talk with them. I did talk to the prosecutor's office this afternoon, and they are at this point waiting for the case file to be sent over to them so they can review a complete review and figure out whether or not the parents will in fact be charged or not in this particular case.
Poland is on the edge after Russian drones violated its airspace, prompting Poland and NATO to scramble its jets. NATO has vowed to defend every inch of the alliance's territory, and its eastern flank faces an unprecedented threat from Moscow. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has warned that Russian actions have brought Poland closest to open conflict since the Second World War.
This situation brings us the closest we have been to open conflict since World War II. We have a full-scale war beyond our Ukrainian-Russian border, but we already have something that goes beyond the bounds of mere provocations in our own skies. And perhaps today we need to say it again very loudly and clearly. Poland today has a political enemy who does not conceal his hostile intentions beyond its eastern border.
Tusk has invoked NATO's Article 4 for urgent talks with members of the Western Defense Alliance. He also told Parliament that Poland had identified 19 violations of its airspace overnight and shot down at least 3 drones, while Poland's Interior Ministry said that 7 drones and debris from an unknown projectile had so far been located.
Poland's airspace was violated last night by a large number of Russian drones. Those that could be a significant threat were shot down.
However, Russia has denied the drone incursions and called the accusations groundless. In a statement, the Russian military said that it had no intention to engage in any targets in Poland. Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof said that its F-35 fighter jets provided support to Poland in shooting down the Russian drones. Schoof further said that the violation of Polish airspace by Russia proved that Moscow poses a threat to European security. In response to the unprecedented airspace violation, Poland has summoned Russia's temporary chargé d'affaires, Andrzej Ordosh, to the Polish Foreign Ministry for a meeting. The Polish airspace violation has drawn widespread criticism across Europe. EU Chief von der Leyen slammed Russia, calling the drone incursions reckless and unprecedented. EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas said that Russia appeared to have intentionally violated Polish airspace. NATO also issued a statement saying its air defenses helped counter drones in Polish airspace. French President Emmanuel Macron called the Russian action, quote, simply unacceptable and urged Moscow to stop its reckless behavior. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of deliberately targeting Poland and pushed for joint air defense with Europe to counter the threat from Moscow. Meanwhile, flights have resumed operation at Warsaw's biggest airport, Chopin Airport, after it was temporarily closed this morning due to the Russian drone incursion. The tensions along NATO's eastern flank comes at a time when U.S. President Donald Trump is trying to broker peace in Ukraine and bring Russian President Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. Amidst these developments, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has said that economic cooperation with Russia is the path to end the war in Ukraine, and President Trump sees no need to isolate Russia economically. Vance made the comments during an interview to One America News. Now, earlier we had spoken to Dr. Sergej Somelny, who is a defense expert and director of the European Resilience Initiative Center. Take a listen.
Oh, well, it is, of course, the next step of escalation, which Russia goes very deliberately from one stage to another. It's a Russian way to pressure those countries Russia considers as enemies, and Russia considers Poland as an enemy and NATO in whole as an enemy. So Russia always tries to push further, remaining each time under the limit when the enemy says, okay, now I strike back. And then Russia expands, disorienting the enemy, making the enemy feel uncomfortable, demoralizing their army, their population. And when it comes to full-scale attack, when Russia thinks, okay, the ground is prepared already. I think the reaction of the Polish prime minister, who said that is a provocation, we're close to the war, that is exactly what leads Russia to the next step. It was not a provocation. It was a military aggression act. It was testing the defense. It was preparing the full-scale invasion. And it is not that Poland is close to the war. It is that Russia is already in war against Poland and going deliberately from one step to another, like in the textbook.
The situation in France remains very volatile. The streets are aflame, highways are being blocked, and tear gas chokes the air. Block everything. That's the rallying cry of the protesters that is sweeping across France. So Sébastien Lecornu takes charge as the Prime Minister. The anger is spilling out onto the streets. An estimated 80,000 police officers have been deployed and more than 200 people have been arrested across the country. The protesters took to the streets in a show of grassroots opposition to President Emmanuel Macron and his freshly appointed Prime Minister. There were flames, there were barricades, and there was tear gas all around, from Toulon to Lyon, from Paris to Nantes. Thousands of protesters answered the call for the protest led by a loose left-wing collective called Block Everything. Right, so our correspondent Ross Cullen is joining us live from Paris. Ross, give us an update of what is happening in France at the moment.
Well, you can see it's calm here at Gare du Nord, the main station. There are still some riot police. You might be able to see behind me, just checking some of the people here at Europe's busiest railway station. There was a demonstration held here earlier, but we are seeing pockets of violence in different cities around the country. The police have been using tear gas in different cities to disperse some of these protesters. It's about 100,000 nationwide, so it's on the small scale when it comes to French-style protests, but there is a lot of disruption. It's worth pointing out that there are more than 100 schools that have been blocked, more than 100 incidents of fires in public spaces across the country, so that's anything from a bin being set alight to cars and buses being set on fire by protesters. They wanted to bring the country to a halt. There have been lots of different industrial action examples taking place, lots of walkouts for different sectors. We are seeing an impact on the railways and the airports, hospitals, schools as well being impacted by this Block Everything movement, which is coming on the very first day in the job for France's new Prime Minister. Sébastien Lecornu, the 39-year-old Emmanuel Macron loyalist, only officially took the reins just a couple of hours ago from François Bayrou, who was ousted in that no-confidence vote on Monday. So a lot for Mr. Lecornu to get stuck into, to deal with this protest movement ongoing. And there have been hundreds, as you say, hundreds of people have been arrested so far today.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Ross Cullen, for joining us from Paris and getting us all this.
The military buildup continues in the southern Caribbean involving the U.S. and Venezuela. President Trump reportedly weighing military strikes against drug cartels inside that South American nation, which would dramatically escalate an already tense situation. It also comes amid mounting questions over an airstrike that took out a suspected drug smuggling boat last week. That strike killed nearly a dozen people, according to the Pentagon. It's still unclear if those on the boat received any warning before the strike, which took place in international waters. Republican Senator Rand Paul slamming Vice President J.D. Vance's praise of the attack online. The Kentucky senator ending a lengthy response, writing, quote, "What a despicable and thoughtless sentiment it is to glorify killing someone without a trial." News Nation's Joe Khalil is live in Washington. Joe, let's start with Venezuela and new moves by that country's military forces.
Yeah, and we're really seeing moves by both countries and both leaders. And I just want to add this, that we have just found out the governor of Puerto Rico putting out a message confirming that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, both were in Puerto Rico today meeting with officials. Puerto Rico is obviously a very important and strategic location in this fight, in this situation right now, because remember, the U.S. also deployed 10 F-35 fighter jets to Puerto Rico last week to help in this fight against drug cartels coming from Venezuela and to give a security boost to the already 7 naval ships that are in the Caribbean region outside of the coast of Venezuela right now. So you're seeing a sort of at least building up of this military posture from both sides as the Secretary of Defense is down in Puerto Rico. Now, we also have President Maduro in Venezuela, who has deployed 25,000 of his own troops there to the coastal areas of Venezuela. He says that that is done with the intent of cracking down on drug cartels themselves in Venezuela, and not in partnership with the effort done by the United States, but rather sort of in defiance of it, saying that the United States isn't going to come to our land. That is what the defense minister from Venezuela said. He went on to say that this is a job for the Venezuelan government, not for the United States to be policing those waters and the Venezuelan coast. This is what President Trump said about all of this, not ruling out actual strikes, not just in the waters around Venezuela, but within their borders as well.
Are you considering attacking the cartels inside of Venezuela? You attack?
Well, you're going to find out. You're going to find out.
All right, so as the sort of situation continues to escalate in terms of rhetoric and in terms of action, both Secretary Hegseth and Rubio have really sort of aggressively talked about the Venezuelan drug cartels in no uncertain terms, saying the United States is at war with the cartels, not with the nation of Venezuela. But remember that just a couple of days ago, as those American warships were in the Caribbean, it wasn't cartels. It was the Venezuelan government, the Maduro regime, that flew 2 F-16 fighter jets over the American ships, a move that the Pentagon deemed basically a provocation, and saying that it was an attempt to interfere with the U.S. operation to try to crack down on narco-terrorists that potentially could be transporting drugs from Venezuela into and around the United States. So we're seeing things really heat up, and it is not calming down, Nicole.
Not at all. All right, Joe Khalil, live for us there in Washington. Thank you.
I'm disappointed that, you know, the leaders of a country like ours that is famous for having due process, for trying to make sure that the innocent aren't harmed in any way, would glorify the idea of killing people without any sort of evidence presented as to who they are. There is a really practical question that arises from this. So every day the Coast Guard interdicts dozens of boats. So today, probably the Coast Guard interdicted a half dozen boats off the coast of Miami. Are we just going to blow them up? I mean, is that really the thinking, is that we blow them up? If this is the new policy that we're just going to blow people up we think are drug dealers, that's what you're just going to see cannons going off of Miami and California coast, and we're just going to blow up ships. That just isn't who we are. It doesn't make any sense. But I guess what prompted me to respond was the sort of the disdain and this idea that hey, I'm the vice president, I don't give a what you say as far as this description, instead of being thoughtful, like, I wonder what this is going to do.
تؤكد دولة قطر أنها لن تتهاون على فيما يتعلق بالمساس بسيادتها وسلامة أراضيها، بأنها ستتعامل بحزم مع أي اختراق متهور أو اعتداء يطال أمنها ويهدد استقرار المنطقة، بأنها تحتفظ بحق الرد على هذا الهجوم السافر وسوف تقوم باتخاذ كافة الإجراءات اللازمة للرد عليه. نعتقد أننا اليوم وصلنا إلى لحظة مفصلية بأن يكون هناك رد من المنطقة بأكمل على مثل هذه التصرفات الهمجية التي لا تعكس شيء إلا تعكس همجية هذا الشخص الذي يقود المنطقة إلى مستوى للأسف لا يمكن إصلاحه ولا يمكن العمل وفق النظم والأطر والقوانين الدولية التي ضرب بها عرض الحائط. I'm sorry if you are talking specifically about the talks on Gaza. Qatar has spared no effort in order to stop this war, and will do whatever it can to stop this war, to stop this hostility on Gaza. Now, when it comes to the current talks, I don't think there is something valid right now, while after we seeing such an attack happening like this.
Mr. President, about the Israeli strike earlier today.
Well, I'm not thrilled. I'm not thrilled about it. I don't have to do that. I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this: we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today.
Mr. President, Israel attacking in advance. So you were caught by surprise, sir.
I'm never surprised by anything, especially when it comes to the Middle East.
How did you learn about this?
I'll be giving a full statement tomorrow, but I would tell you this: I was very unhappy about it, very unhappy about every aspect, and we got to get the hostages back. But I was very unhappy about the way that went down.
Trump, you are not welcome here! Yes, he is! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! He's terrorizing communities all over the world! From Puerto Rico to the Philippines! To Venezuela! He is terrorizing communities! He is not welcome to D.C. He's not welcome to Palestine! Palestine is not for sale! Free D.C! Free Palestine! Shame on you all! Free D.C! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free D.C! Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free D.C. Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! Free D.C. Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler of our time! What do you want your legacy to be? Let's go. Let's go. What do you want your legacy to be? Time to go. Free Palestine! Trump is the Hitler!
Time to go.
And he was welcomed here! He's terrorizing communities and
The 22nd Amendment says you can only run for office for 2 terms.
True.
You think that that's cut and dry?
Fox anchor Bret Baier talks presidential term limits with Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
Well, that's what the amendment says, right? After FDR had 4 terms, that's what that amendment says.
Supporters of President Donald Trump and Trump himself have suggested that he might run again in 2028. If he does, the matter is almost certain to be decided by the Supreme Court. Baier seized the opportunity to ask the question after Coney Barrett explained the Constitution is written in varying levels of generality.
So sometimes it's very specific. The president has to be at least 35 years old. But sometimes it's very general. We're protected from unreasonable searches and seizures. We have freedom of speech. And to have freedom of speech doesn't mean that you have freedom only to pass out pamphlets in a town square. I mean, it means that you have freedom to be on broadcast news.